The September evening air was crisp as I pulled into Jason's driveway, balancing a homemade casserole on my lap. I hadn't told him I was coming, just a surprise visit, the kind mothers still believe will be welcomed, no matter how old their children get. As I stepped out of the car, I saw him before he saw me. Jason was standing at the front door, his back straight, a bouquet of red roses clutched in his hands. His knuckles were white around the stems, and the look on his face made my stomach twist. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't excited. He looked like a man holding his breath before walking into fire. I slowed my steps, casserole warm against my palms. "Jason?" I called softly. He jumped, then turned, his eyes wide, startled. "Mom, what are you doing here?" His voice was rough, strained. Before I could answer, the sound of laughter drifted from inside the house. A woman's laugh, light, familiar. Sarah. But then came a man's voice, low, confident, too close. Jason's jaw tightened. He looked back at the door, his grip on the roses trembling. In that moment, I understood. My son wasn't bringing flowers to a wife who was waiting lovingly for him. He was bringing flowers to a woman who was already entertaining someone else. And I was about to watch my son's world break in half. Jason's hand hovered at the doorknob, the bouquet shaking slightly. His lips pressed into a hard line, and I could see the storm building behind his eyes. "Jason," I whispered, stepping closer. "Don't go in angry. Think—" But it was too late. He twisted the knob and shoved the door open. The warmth of the house hit us immediately. Candlelight, soft music playing, the smell of dinner on the stove. For a split second, it could have passed as a romantic evening meant for him, except it wasn't. Sarah sat on the couch, hair loose around her shoulders, a glass of wine in hand, and next to her, too close, was a man I'd never seen before. Broad shoulders, easy smile, his hand resting on the cushion between them, inching closer. They both froze when we walked in. Sarah's smile dropped, her wine glass clinking against the coffee table as she set it down too fast. "Jason," she stammered. The man straightened, eyes darting between the roses in Jason's hand and the fury on his face. Jason's voice was low, steady, but dangerous. "Who is he?" Silence. Sarah's mouth opened, but no words came. The stranger shifted uncomfortably like a boy caught with his hand in the cookie jar, and I stood in the doorway clutching the casserole dish so tightly my arms ached, my heart shattering for my son. Because this wasn't a misunderstanding, this was betrayal, plain and raw, burning right in front of us. Jason dropped the roses. They scattered across the hardwood floor, petals breaking off and skittering under the couch. The sound was small, but it felt deafening in the silence that followed. Sarah stood quickly, her voice high, panicked. "It's not what it looks like." Jason's eyes narrowed. "Then explain it. Explain why I walk into my house and find you drinking wine with another man." The stranger finally spoke, his tone awkward but defensive. "Hey man, calm down. Don't you talk to me," Jason snapped, his chest rising and falling in sharp bursts. His fists clenched at his sides, the veins in his neck standing out. I stepped forward, my voice soft but firm. "Jason, breathe." He didn't look at me. His eyes stayed locked on Sarah, who was wringing her hands, her face pale. I was lonely," she whispered. "You're always working late, and he's just a friend. A friend doesn't sit in my house with wine and candles while I'm at work." Jason cut her off, his voice breaking. The words hung heavy in the air. I could feel my own hands trembling, the casserole dish still in my grip, the smell of baked cheese suddenly sour in my nose. I wanted to scream at her, to throw that dish across the room, to demand how she could betray my son like this. But I stayed still, because this was his fight, his pain, and all I could do was stand beside him while his heart cracked open. Jason took a step closer to Sarah, his voice shaking now, not with anger but with hurt. "How long?" Her lips parted, but nothing came out. That silence was louder than any confession. The man shifted uncomfortably, then muttered, "I should go." Jason's head snapped toward him. "You think you're walking out of here like this never happened?" His voice was low, raw, almost breaking. I placed a hand on Jason's arm, grounding him. "Let him go," I whispered. Jason's chest heaved, his eyes still locked on the man, but finally he nodded stiffly. "Get out!" The stranger grabbed his jacket and slipped past us, the door clicking shut behind him. The house felt colder instantly. Sarah's voice trembled. "Jason, please. I didn't mean for this to happen. Jason raised a hand, cutting her off. Don't feed me excuses." The roses still lay scattered on the floor, their petals crushed under his shoes. He stared at them, then back at her, and I could see it. The exact moment something inside him broke. "I came here with flowers," he said softly. "I wanted to surprise you, to tell you I'm sorry for all the late nights, that I was trying to build something for us. And this is what I walk into?" Tears filled Sarah's eyes, but she stayed silent. Jason turned away from her then, finally looking at me. His eyes were glassy, his voice hoarse. "Mom, what do I do now?" And in that moment I saw my son, not the grown man, but the boy who once scraped his knees and came running to me for answers. I didn't have all the answers, but I knew one thing. He wasn't going to face this alone. I set the casserole down on the table with a heavy thud and walked over to Jason. His shoulders were rigid, his eyes burning holes into the floor, like if he looked up he might shatter. I placed my hand gently on his back. "You don't have to decide everything tonight," I said softly. Sarah stepped forward, her voice desperate. "Jason, please, listen to me. It was just dinner, just company. Nothing happened." Jason looked up at her, his face twisted in disbelief. "Do you hear yourself? Candles, wine. While I was standing outside with roses, you were in here with him." His voice cracked on the last word. She wiped at her tears, but they seemed more like performance than regret. "I felt invisible, Jason. You're never home. You're always working." My son laughed bitterly, the sound sharp, hollow. "Working to keep this roof over our heads, to give us a life, and this is how you fill the empty hours?" I wanted to say something, to remind her of all the ways she had taken from him, but I held my tongue. This wasn't my defense to make. Jason turned back to me, his hands shaking. "Mom, I don't think I can forgive this." Sarah gasped, stepping closer. "Don't say that. You can't throw everything away over one mistake." Jason's eyes hardened. "No, you threw it away. I just walked in and saw the truth." The silence after that was suffocating. Sarah's face crumpled, but Jason didn't move toward her. He stayed rooted beside me, his mother, as though for the first time in years I was the only safe place left to stand. The air in the room grew heavier by the second. Sarah paced, clutching her robe tighter around herself, her voice breaking into sharp fragments. "You can't just walk away from this. From me. From us." Jason's face was pale, but his jaw was set. "You already did that for me." I could see her panic mounting, not from love, but from fear of losing control. Her eyes darted around the room, landing on me. "You're not helping," she snapped. Her finger pointed at me like I was the problem. "You've always been between us, always in his ear." I felt my chest rise, but my voice came out calm, cool. "Don't blame me for the choices you made." Jason turned sharply toward her. "Don't you dare talk to my mother like that." For a moment she was silent, stunned by his tone. Then her face hardened. "If you walk out that door, Jason, don't expect me to be here when you come back." Jason's lips trembled, but he didn't falter. He grabbed his jacket off the hook by the door, the movement deliberate, final. He looked at her one last time. "Then I guess this is goodbye." Sarah's breath caught, and for the first time, she had nothing to say. Jason turned to me, his voice low. "Mom, let's go." And just like that, my son chose to walk away from betrayal, toward me. We walked out of that house together, Jason and I, into the night air that felt sharper than before, like the whole world had shifted. The roses still lay broken on the floor behind us, petals scattered like pieces of his heart. He didn't look back, not once. The drive to my place was quiet, only the hum of the engine filling the space. Jason's hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly. His knuckles gleamed white in the dashboard light. His eyes were fixed on the road, but I could see the storm raging inside him. Finally he spoke, his voice low, hoarse. How could I not see it? How long has she been doing this behind my back? I kept my tone gentle. Sometimes love blinds us. We want to believe so badly. We ignore the signs. He shook his head, his jaw tight. I worked late nights, Mom. I thought I was building something for us. And the whole time, his voice trailed off, broken. He slammed his fist against the steering wheel once, the sound sharp in the small car. I reached across, laying a hand over his arm. Don't do that. Don't blame yourself for her choices. He looked at me then, eyes glassy with unshed tears. But I let her make a fool out of me. I thought she was my partner. There was no easy answer, no neat string of words to tie up his pain. So I stayed quiet, my hand still steady on his arm, reminding him that no matter how shattered he felt, he wasn't alone. When we pulled into my driveway, Jason just sat there staring straight ahead. The house lights glowed warmly in the windows, but he didn't move. After a long silence, he whispered, I don't even know who I am without her. She took everything. I turned to him, my heart aching. No, Jason, she didn't take everything. You still have your life. You still have your strength. And you still have me. He finally looked at me fully, his eyes red but focused. And in that look, I saw a boy who once trusted me to guide him through scraped knees and broken dreams. Now a man, standing on the edge of rebuilding his life. He nodded slowly. Then I guess this is where I start over. And for the first time since walking into that house, I saw the faintest flicker of hope on his face. The first few days at my house were rough. Jason moved like a ghost through the rooms, barely eating, barely sleeping. I'd hear him pacing in the guest room at night, his footsteps restless against the floorboards, like his body couldn't settle even if his mind begged it to. I gave him space, but I stayed close. Coffee waiting on the counter in the mornings, quiet dinners in the evenings. Sometimes we'd eat in silence. Sometimes he'd talk, his words spilling out like pieces of glass he needed to get rid of. She made me feel like I was never enough, he confessed one night, staring into his untouched plate of pasta. Always criticizing, always comparing, and I kept trying harder, thinking if I worked more hours, bought her nicer things, she'd finally see me. He shook his head, but she never wanted me. Not really. I felt my chest tighten. Jason, love isn't about earning. It's about choosing each other every single day. And she stopped choosing you long before you realized it. His throat worked as he swallowed, his eyes glistening. Why didn't I see it sooner? I reached across the table, taking his hand. Because you loved her. And love makes us believe the best, even when the truth is staring at us. For the first time, he didn't pull away. He squeezed my hand just slightly, as though holding onto it kept him from drifting. The next morning, I found him outside on the porch, staring at the sunrise. He looked exhausted but lighter, like the weight on his chest was starting to shift. I don't know what the future looks like, he admitted, his voice rough. But I know I can't go back to her. Not after this. I stood beside him, the morning air cool on our skin, and said the words I'd been holding in. Then don't. Move forward, Jason. Build something new. This doesn't have to be the end. It can be the beginning. He turned his head slightly, studying me, and for the first time, I saw something different in his eyes. Not just pain, not just anger. Determination. He nodded slowly. Then that's what I'll do. The sun broke over the horizon, spilling gold across the yard, and in that moment I knew my son was finally ready to rise again. By the end of the week, Jason's posture had changed. He still carried the sadness. Betrayal doesn't wash off in a few days. But his steps were firmer now, his shoulders straighter. He started making lists, scribbled notes on scraps of paper he left scattered across my kitchen table. Lawyer, one note read. New place, another. And on the corner of one list, circled 3 times, the word freedom. That Friday evening, he sat across from me with a determined look in his eyes. I need to go back there, Mom. Not to her. To get my things. To end it properly. My chest tightened. The thought of him walking back into that house, facing her again, made me want to wrap him in my arms and keep him safe forever. But I knew better. He couldn't heal if he left unfinished business behind. "Do you want me to come with you?" I asked. He hesitated, then gave a small nod. "Yes, I don't want to walk in there alone." So we went. The house looked the same from the outside, but to me it felt tainted, like the walls themselves had soaked up the lies. Jason unlocked the door with steady hands, and together we stepped inside. Sarah was there. She jumped up from the couch when she saw us, her eyes red, hair unkempt. "Jason, please, we can fix this," she begged, rushing toward him. He stepped back, his voice firm. "No, Sarah, there's no fixing what you broke." Her lip trembled, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I made a mistake. Don't throw us away over one mistake." Jason's laugh was bitter but steady. "It wasn't one mistake. It was the choice you made when you thought I'd never find out. That's who you are now, and I'm done living in denial." I stood quietly by the door, watching my son reclaim his strength word by word. Sarah reached for his arm, but he pulled away. "I came here for my things. That's it. After tonight, we're done." The silence that followed was thick, broken only by the sound of his footsteps as he headed to the bedroom. I stayed near the door, arms folded, my presence a quiet shield between him and the woman who had shattered his trust. When Jason returned with his bags, his face was calm, resolute. He didn't look at Sarah again. He just walked past her straight to me, and when the door closed behind us, I knew he wasn't just walking out of that house. He was walking into the rest of his life. Jason stayed with me for a while after that night. At first he was quiet, almost fragile, moving through the days like a man learning how to breathe again. But slowly, I watched him come back to life. He found a new apartment across town. A small one-bedroom, nothing fancy but his space. He painted the walls himself, built shelves from scratch, and filled the place with only what he wanted, not what someone else demanded. The pride in his eyes when he handed me the spare key was something I'll never forget. One Sunday morning, I stopped by with groceries, and for the first time in months, I saw my son smile. Really smile. He was standing at the stove, flipping pancakes, music playing low in the background. "Look at you," I teased, setting the bags on the counter. "Domestic and independent." He chuckled, shaking his head. "It feels good, Mom. I feel free." I sat at the little table by the window, watching him. The man in front of me wasn't the same one who had stood at his old front door with roses, waiting for love that wasn't there. He was stronger now, grounded, his pain shaping him instead of breaking him. After breakfast, he leaned back in his chair, sipping his coffee. His voice was soft but certain. "You know, if you hadn't shown up that night, I don't think I would have had the strength to face the truth. I probably would have believed her lies, stayed stuck." My chest ached, but in the best way. "Jason, you had that strength all along. I just reminded you it was there." He reached across the table, covering my hand with his. "Thank you, Mom, for being there when I needed you most." The sunlight streamed in through the window, warm on our faces, and in that moment I realized something. Betrayal had taken so much from him, but it had also given him something unexpected, a chance to rebuild, to start over, to live without illusions. And as his mother, I got to witness the most important part, watching my son choose himself, finally, unapologetically. He wasn't broken anymore. He was beginning, and so was I.